Picture yourself standing at the edge of a vast ocean, watching as waves crash against the shore. Each wave represents a choice, a moment where you can either stand firm in your truth or allow yourself to be swept away by the currents of manipulation. Today, we're going to embark on a profound journey together, one that will transform your understanding of yourself and the invisible forces that may be shaping your decisions without your awareness. Let me share something that struck me deeply while walking through a garden one morning. I noticed how a seemingly healthy vine had wrapped itself around a young tree, slowly constricting its growth. The tree appeared to be thriving at first glance, but upon closer inspection, you could see how it was gradually being shaped and controlled by this invasive presence. This simple observation reflects what happens in our own lives when we fall prey to emotional manipulation. It's subtle, often disguised as care or concern, but ultimately restricts our authentic growth. How many of you have ever felt that gnawing sensation in your gut? That something wasn't quite right in a relationship or interaction, but you couldn't quite put your finger on why. That discomfort is your inner wisdom speaking to you, and today, we're going to learn how to listen to it more closely. Emotional manipulation is like a fog that rolls in so gradually, you don't notice you're lost until you can barely see your hand in front of your face. It's in the subtle guilt trips that make you question your own judgment. It's in the quiet implications that your needs are somehow less valid than others. It's in the skilled way some people can make their problems feel like your responsibilities, a truth that will set you free. You were born with an internal compass that can guide you through this fog. You have within you all the wisdom you need to recognize when someone is attempting to manipulate your emotions. The challenge isn't in gaining new knowledge. It's in remembering what you already know and finding the courage to honor it. Think back to a time when you made a decision that didn't feel right, but you made it anyway because someone else made you feel it was your only choice. Hold that memory gently in your mind. That discomfort you felt wasn't weakness. It was your authentic self trying to protect you. The most insidious aspect of emotional manipulation is how it masquerades as love, as concern, as wisdom from those who know better. It's the parent who uses guilt to control their adult child's choices. It's the partner who subtly undermines confidence under the guise of just trying to help. It's the friend who makes every conversation about their needs while dismissing yours. Let me share profound truths. Your emotions are valid messengers, not inconvenient obstacles to be overcome. When someone tries to convince you that your feelings are wrong, exaggerated, or unimportant, they're attempting to disconnect you from your most reliable guidance system. Have you ever noticed how certain people in your life seem to leave you feeling drained, confused, or somehow less than after interactions with them? This isn't coincidence, and it isn't your fault. These are the after effects of subtle emotional manipulation, like the residue left behind after a storm. The first step in breaking free from emotional manipulation is simply acknowledging its existence in your life. This recognition isn't about blaming others or yourself. It's about awakening to a reality that's been hidden in plain sight. It's about understanding that manipulation often comes from people who themselves are wounded, operating from their own places of fear and lack. When we begin to see manipulation for what it is, we often feel a mix of emotions. Anger at having been controlled, shame at having allowed it, fear of what might happen if we change the dynamic. All of these feelings are natural parts of the awakening process. They're not signs of weakness. They're indicators that you're finally connecting with your truth. They may share something profound with you. The moment you begin to question whether you're being manipulated is often the moment you've already started to break free. That questioning is your authentic self rising to the surface, like a lotus flower pushing through muddy waters toward the light. As we continue this journey together, I want you to hold on to this essential truth. Your worth is not determined by your usefulness to others. Your value doesn't depend on how well you can meet others' expectations. Your right to feel, to choose, to be, is fundamental and unshakable. In the coming moments, we're going to explore the specific patterns of manipulation that might be present in your life. We'll learn how to recognize them not just with our minds, but with our hearts and our bodies. We'll discover how to stand firm in our truth without becoming hard or bitter. And most importantly, we'll learn how to maintain compassion, both for ourselves and for those who may have manipulated us while establishing healthy, unshakable boundaries. Remember, this journey isn't about becoming invulnerable to others' influence. It's about becoming so deeply connected to your own truth that manipulation loses its power over you. It's about reclaiming the authentic voice within you that may have been silenced or ignored for far too long. Take a deep breath with me now. Feel the strength that already exists within you. That strength has always been there, waiting for you to recognize and embrace it. Today, we begin the process of bringing it fully into the light. You know, one of the most powerful realizations we can have is that manipulation often wears a smile. It comes wrapped in packages that look like love, sound like concern, and feel like protection. But beneath that wrapping lies something that slowly dims our inner light. Consider water for a moment. When water first begins to boil, it doesn't happen all at once. It starts with tiny bubbles at the bottom of the pot, almost imperceptible at first. Emotional manipulation works the same way. It begins with small moments, subtle shifts, tiny compromises that seem insignificant in isolation. Before you realize what's happening, you're in a full boil and your authentic self is evaporating away. Let's talk about the signs. The red flags that your inner wisdom is trying to show you. First, there's the fog of confusion. When you leave interactions feeling confused about what just happened, questioning your own memory or perception. This is often a sign of gaslighting, particularly insidious form of manipulation. Have you ever found yourself apologizing for things that aren't your fault? Or perhaps you've caught yourself walking on eggshells, carefully choosing every word to avoid triggering someone else's emotional storm. These are not natural ways of being. They're adaptations to manipulation. One of the most common tools of emotional manipulators is the false choice. They present you with options that all serve their interests while making you feel like you're making your own decisions. It's like being asked whether you'd prefer to take the blame or be considered selfish. Neither option honors your truth. Yet the question itself makes you feel like you must choose one. Here's a truth that might shake you. Healthy love empowers. It doesn't diminish. Healthy love creates space for growth. It doesn't confine. Healthy love celebrates your independence. It doesn't demand your dependence. If someone's love makes you feel smaller, weaker, or less capable, that's not love. It's control wearing love's costume. Let's explore the subtle art of guilt tripping. It's amazing how some people can turn any situation into a referendum on how much you care about them. If you really loved me, you would. After all I've done for you. These phrases are not expressions of love. They're emotional manipulation tools designed to bypass your natural boundaries. The fascinating thing about manipulation is that it often targets our deepest desires, our wish to be kind, to be loved, to be considered good people. The manipulator knows that good people want to help others, so they exploit this natural inclination. They turn your virtues into vulnerabilities. But here's where we begin to turn the tide. Awareness is the first step toward freedom. When you can name something, you begin to have power over it. When you can recognize manipulation in the moment, its power begins to dissolve. Think about times when you felt inexplicably drained after spending time with certain people. That drainage isn't just fatigue. It's the cost of maintaining a false self to please others. It's the energy spent constantly monitoring yourself to avoid triggering someone else's reactions. You share something profound. Your emotions are like internal weather patterns. They're meant to flow naturally, to shift and change. When someone tries to control your emotional weather, to tell you that you shouldn't feel what you're feeling, or that your emotional responses are wrong, they're attempting to play God with your internal climate. One of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself is this: if there were no consequences, no guilt, no fear of disapproval, what would I choose? The answer to this question often reveals the gap between your authentic desires and the choices you're making under the influence of manipulation. The path to freedom from emotional manipulation isn't about becoming harder or less caring. It's about becoming more authentically yourself. It's about recognizing that your compassion is a strength, not a weakness. It's about understanding that you can be kind without being a doormat, loving without being subservient. Every time you say yes when your heart is screaming no, you're not just making a single compromise. You're reinforcing a pattern that says your truth is less important than someone else's desires. Each time you silence your inner voice to keep the peace, you're teaching yourself that peace is more valuable than authenticity. But here's the beautiful truth. You can change this pattern. You can learn to honor both your compassion and your boundaries. You can be kind while being strong, loving while being firm, caring while being clear about your limits.
The journey to freedom from manipulation begins with small steps. It starts with tiny moments of courage. Speaking your truth even when your voice shakes, standing firm even when guilt tries to sway you, trusting your instincts even when others try to override them.
Remember this. The same sensitivity that makes you vulnerable to manipulation is also your greatest strength. It's what allows you to connect deeply with others, to understand nuance, to feel the world in all its richness. The goal isn't to lose this sensitivity. It's to pair it with discernment. There's a fascinating paradox in nature that teaches us something profound about breaking free from manipulation. Consider the butterfly emerging from its chrysalis. If you try to help it by breaking open the cocoon, you actually harm it. The struggle to emerge is what strengthens its wings, preparing it for flight. Similarly, the struggle to recognize and overcome manipulation, though difficult, is precisely what builds our strength and wisdom. Let's talk about one of the most powerful tools, manipulators. You see, not the obvious kind of fear that makes your heart race, but the subtle, insidious fear of disapproval, of abandonment, of not being enough. This fear is like invisible chains that keep us bound to patterns that no longer serve us. Think about how many times you've swallowed your words, buried your feelings, or compromised your values because you were afraid of rocking the boat. Each time we do this, we're not just making a momentary choice. We're reinforcing neural pathways that make it easier to compromise our truth the next time. There's something remarkable about the human spirit. It never completely loses its connection to truth, even after years of manipulation. There's always a part of us that knows, that feels the discord between what we're accepting and what we truly deserve. That knowing is your compass pointing toward freedom. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is moving from external validation to internal wisdom. Manipulators excel at making their approval seem essential to your well-being. They position themselves as the authority on your life, your choices, your worth. Breaking free starts with reclaiming that authority. Every time someone makes you doubt your perception of reality, they're not just challenging your view of a single situation, they're attempting to disconnect you from your most valuable guidance system, your own intuition. Your inner knowing is like a muscle. The more you trust it, the stronger it becomes. Let me share something profound about boundaries. Many of us were taught that having strong boundaries means being harsh or unloving. But true boundaries are actually an expression of love. Love for ourselves and respect for others. When we set clear boundaries, we're not just protecting ourselves. We're creating the conditions for authentic relationships to flourish. The journey to freedom from manipulation requires us to face an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the people who manipulate us are the ones we love most. They might be family members who genuinely believe they're acting in our best interest, friends who don't recognize their controlling behaviors, or partners who learn these patterns in their own childhood. This is where compassion becomes crucial, not just for others, but for ourselves. Understanding that manipulative behavior often comes from a place of fear and wounding doesn't mean we have to accept it. We can have compassion for someone's pain while still refusing to let it shape our choices. Here's a powerful realization. Every time you honor your truth, you make it easier for others to honor theirs. When you stand firm in your authenticity, you become a living permission slip for others to do the same. Your journey to freedom isn't just about you. It's about breaking generational patterns of manipulation. Think about water again. How it can be both soft and powerful. It doesn't fight the rock. It flows around it, and over time, it reshapes the landscape. This is how we learn to deal with manipulation. Not through force or confrontation, but through the consistent, gentle power of maintaining our truth. One of the most liberating realizations is that we don't have to prove our reality to anyone else. When someone tries to manipulate us into doubting our experiences, we don't have to engage in endless debates about what really happened. We can simply hold our truth quietly and firmly without needing external validation. Consider how a tree grows. It doesn't apologize for taking up space, for needing sunlight, for extending its roots. It simply grows according to its nature. You have the same right to grow, to expand, to take up space in the world without apology. The path to freedom from manipulation isn't always about dramatic confrontations or cutting people out of our lives. Sometimes it's about subtle shifts in how we respond. It's about learning to stay centered in our truth, even when others try to pull us off balance. It's about developing an internal anchor that keeps us steady in emotional storms. Your worth isn't determined by how useful you are to others. Your value doesn't decrease when you say no. Your right to exist doesn't depend on how well you meet others' expectations. These truths are your birthright, and no amount of manipulation can change them. As you continue this journey, you'll find that freedom from manipulation isn't a destination. It's a practice. Every day brings new opportunities to choose truth over harmony, authenticity over approval, self-respect over. Each choice builds upon the last, creating a foundation of inner strengths that no one can shake. The most beautiful part of this journey is watching how your relationships transform as you become more authentic. Some relationships may fall away, yes, but the ones that remain, and the new ones you attract, will be based on mutual respect, genuine care, and true understanding. Let's explore something powerful that happens when we begin to break free from manipulants. We start to recognize the difference between genuine connection and emotional dependency. Imagine two trees growing side by side. They don't need to intertwine their branches to support each other. They simply grow tall together, each firmly rooted in their own ground. The art of breaking free from manipulation isn't about becoming invulnerable. It's about becoming discerning. It's like developing a refined palate that can distinguish between authentic nourishment and empty calories. Your heart knows the difference between love that lifts you up and attachment that weighs you down. Consider how a compass works. It doesn't argue with magnetic north. It simply points to it consistently and quietly. Your inner wisdom works the same way. When someone tries to manipulate you, you don't need to argue or defend. You can simply notice that your internal compass is pointing in a different direction from what they're suggesting. One of the most profound shifts happens when we stop explaining ourselves. Manipulators often demand explanations for our choices, making us feel we need to justify our feelings, our boundaries, our very existence. But here's the truth. No is a complete sentence. Your choices don't require elaborate justification. Think about how manipulation often works through the currency of obligation. After everything I've done for you, if you really cared, these phrases create artificial debts that were never yours to pay. True love doesn't keep a scorecard. Real connection doesn't demand repayment. Here's something remarkable about breaking free from manipulation. As you become more authentic, you naturally attract more authentic connections. It's like tuning a radio to the right frequency. Suddenly, the static clears, and you can hear the music. Let's talk about the power of silence. Not the silence of submission, but the silence of strength. When someone tries to manipulate you, you don't always need to engage. Sometimes your silence can be like a mirror, reflecting back to them their own behavior without absorbing it. Consider how an oak tree responds to a storm. It doesn't try to fight every gust of wind. It allows its branches to flex while staying firmly rooted. This is how we learn to deal with manipulative behavior. Not by becoming rigid, but by remaining flexible while staying grounded in our truth. The journey to freedom often requires us to face our own patterns of self-manipulation. How often have you talked yourself out of your own knowing? How many times have you dismissed your intuition in favor of what you thought you should do? Recognition of these patterns is the first step to changing them. The same sensitivity that makes you vulnerable to manipulation is also your greatest gift. It's what allows you to feel deeply, to connect authentically, to understand nuance. The key is not to dull this sensitivity, but to pair it with wisdom. Think about how water behaves in different containers. It takes the shape of whatever holds it, yet never loses its essential nature. You can learn to be adaptable without losing your essence. You can be flexible without being manipulatable. One of the most powerful realizations is that manipulators often target our virtues, our desire to help, our capacity for empathy, our willingness to give others the benefit of the doubt. But these qualities aren't weaknesses to be overcome. They're strengths to be protected with wisdom. Consider the difference between sacrifice and contribution. Sacrifice depletes you. Contribution enriches both giver and receiver. When someone consistently demands sacrifice under the guise of love, they're not asking for contribution. They're engaging in manipulation. The path to freedom requires us to embrace paradox. We can be kind without being compliant, strong without being harsh, loving without being submissive. We can hold others with compassion while holding ourselves with respect. Every time you honor your boundaries, you're not just protecting yourself, you're teaching others how to be in relationship with you. Every time you speak your truth, you're not just expressing yourself, you're creating space for authentic connection. The journey of breaking free from manipulation often involves grieving the relationships we thought we had, the love we thought we were receiving, the person we thought we had to be worthy of connection. This grief is sacred. It's part of your healing. As you continue to strengthen your resistance to manipulation, you'll find that your energy naturally rises. When you're no longer spending energy managing others' emotions or maintaining false versions of yourself, you have more vitality for. As we move toward the conclusion of our journey together, let's explore the deepest truth about breaking free from manipulation. It's not just about changing our relationships with others. It's about transforming our relationship with ourselves. It's about reclaiming the authority over our own experience that we may have unknowingly given away.
Think about how a garden grows. You can't force a flower to bloom. You can only create the conditions that allow it to flourish. Similarly, authentic relationships can't be forced or manipulated into existence. They can only grow in the soil of mutual respect, watered by genuine care and nourished by truth. Here's something profound about the nature of change. When you begin to stand in your truth, some people will resist. They've grown accustomed to the old you, the you that could be manipulated, the you that would compromise to keep the peace. Their resistance isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's evidence that you're doing something.
Consider the metaphor of a bird learning to fly. The mother bird doesn't push the baby bird out of the nest because she doesn't care. She does it because she knows flight is its natural state. Similarly, breaking free from manipulation isn't about becoming something new. It's about returning to your natural state of authenticity and power. The most beautiful transformation happens when we stop trying to prove our worth to others and start embodying it for ourselves. It's like switching from a flashlight to sunlight. Instead of seeking illumination from outside, we remember that we are the. Let's talk about the power of forgiveness. Not as a way of excusing manipulation, but as a means of freeing ourselves from its lasting effects. Forgiveness doesn't mean allowing harmful behavior to continue. It means releasing the emotional charge that keeps us bound to past.
Think about how a river flows. It doesn't stop when it encounters an obstacle. It finds new paths, creates new channels, always moving forward. Your journey toward freedom from manipulation is similar. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to forge new pathways of being.
Every time you've been manipulated, every time you felt powerless, every time you've compromised your truth, these experiences haven't weakened you. They've been preparing you for this moment of awakening, this return to your authentic power. The journey we've been discussing isn't just about recognizing and stopping manipulation. It's about reclaiming your divine right to be exactly who you are. It's about remembering that you don't need to earn your place in the world. You were born worthy of love, respect, and authenticity. Consider how a diamond is formed. This through pressure, through heat, through time. The challenges you faced haven't destroyed you. They've been transforming you into something more beautiful, more authentic, more real. Your struggles with manipulation haven't been punishment. They've been preparation. As we near our conclusion, remember this. Your sensitivity is your superpower, your ability to feel deeply, to care profoundly, to love wholly. These aren't weaknesses to be corrected, but gifts to be protected. The key is not to become less sensitive, but to become more discerning. The path forward isn't about becoming someone new. It's about unbecoming everything you thought you had to be. It's about peeling away the layers of adaptation, the masks of compliance, the armor of people-pleasing, until you reach the brilliant truth of who you've always been. Remember that freedom from manipulation isn't a destination, it's a practice. Each day brings new opportunities to choose truth over harmony, authenticity over approval, self-respect over external validation. Each choice builds upon the last, creating an unshakable foundation of inner strength. As you leave here today, carry this truth in your heart. You are not here to live up to others' expectations. You are not here to make yourself small so others can feel big. You are here to live your truth, to shine your light, to be unapologetically authentic. The world needs your authentic voice, your genuine presence, your unmanipulated truth. When you free yourself from manipulation, you don't just transform your own life. You create ripples of authenticity that touch everyone around you. Your journey forward from this moment is sacred. Each time you honor your boundaries, speak your truth, or stand in your authenticity, you're not just changing your own life. You're helping to create a world where manipulation has less power and authentic connection has more space to flourish. Let your transformation begin now. Let every breath be a recommitment to your truth. Let every step forward be a step toward greater authenticity. The power to break free from manipulation has always been within you. It's time to let it shine. You are not alone on this journey. The same force that guides the stars in their courses lives within you. The same wisdom that turns seeds into flowers flows through your veins. Trust it. Follow it. Let it lead you home to yourself. This is your moment. This is your time. This is your journey back to the truth of who you've always been. Take this wisdom, take this power, take this truth, and let it transform not just your life, but the lives of all those you touch with your newfound authenticity.